In this video, we will discuss the different forms of lines. The first form will be the point slope form. If you are given a point, x sub 1, y sub 1, this is a subscript, not an exponent, all right? We often shorten that from x sub 1 to just say x1, y1, all right? And the slope m, if you have those three things, x1, y1, and m, then the form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This minus sign right here just means to change the sign. If you're going from this y1 into the point or from the point back into the formula or with this negative in the x1. That just means change the sign. All right, that's what that means. When you have a negative in a formula, it just means change the sign. The next form we want to talk about is the slope-intercept form. So it's y equals mx plus b, where m is the thing times x, it's the slope, and b is the thing by itself, it is the y-intercept. Now, if you'll note, this formula has a plus sign here. So if a negative sign meant to change the sign, what do you think a plus sign means? It means leave the sign alone. So don't change the sign if you have a plus, all right? A minus sign in a formula means change the sign. If it's a plus, you don't change the sign. So then standard form will be the next one. And some books vary here with this form and the next form that we're going to see, the general. But the standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a and b are both not 0. You got to have one of them in there to have a line. All right. So I want you to also note that this is a capital B and this is a little b. Those are different things. Math is what we call case sensitive, meaning a big B and a little b don't necessarily mean the same thing, even though here we're talking about lines. All right, so that little b is the y-intercept. That capital B is just simply a coefficient of y in the standard form. The other form, the last form we're going to talk about, is the general form, and it's very related to the standard form. In fact, typically a book will use one or the other and sometimes have both. But ax plus by plus c equals 0. So they just move the c to the other side and say plus c. So it's still the same a and b. Again, a and b both cannot be 0. Typically, in both the standard and the general form, typically in both of these, we say that a is greater than 0. So we say a is positive typically. It's not wrong if you don't do that, but we typically say that a is positive. But it can be negative, and you can still do the things you need to do. All right? If you graph lines, the absolute, unequivocal best way to graph a line in slope-intercept form is to use the slope and the y-intercept. All right? There is no better way to do this. You always start with a point on the graph, so you start with the y-intercept because the slope only tells you how 2 points are related. So you have to know a point first. The point we know is the y-intercept, which is little b. And so that means you're either going to go up, and when I say up, this is from the origin, okay? From the origin. You're either going to go up from the origin or down from the origin. If b is positive, you go up. If you got a negative b, you go down, right? That's what you do. So positive b, up, negative b, down. And then once you have this point plotted, apply your slope from that point with rise over run. Okay? Rise over run. And in my video where we graph these, we'll talk about if you have an integer like -5 or 7, you put it over 1 so that you have the rise over run. You never answer over 1, but you think about it over 1 to do that. Positive slope is either up, which is a positive direction, and right, which is a positive direction, or down, which is a negative direction. I know it's a positive slope, but if you go down and you also go left, then you have a negative over a negative, and that turns into a positive, right, when you divide two negatives. This is because if I do a positive over a positive, that's up and right, we get a positive slope. If I do negative over negative, that's down and left, you also get a positive slope. So either up and right or down and left for positive slope. A negative slope is either going to be up and left or it's going to be down and right. This is because positive over negative, that is your up and left. That gives you a negative slope. And then if you have negative over positive, negative is down, positive is right. Again, a negative over a positive is a negative number whenever you divide those. So negative slope is up and left or down and right, depending on what fits on your grid, that sort of thing when you graph these. If you have general or standard form, right here, general or standard form, the absolute unequivocal best way to graph that is to use the y-intercept and the x-intercept. There is no better way. I know a lot of people transform them into something else, but you're not being efficient when you do that. So one of the things that I stress in my classes is I want you to be efficient. Okay? I want you to be efficient. Be a problem solver, not a problem creator. Be efficient and pay attention to detail. If you can do those three things, you will become better at math and everything else in life you do. All right? So note, to find an intercept, and this doesn't matter if it's x's and y's or if you have 26 variables, one for every letter in the alphabet. If you let every other variable be 0, you find an intercept. So in a standard form, there's only one other variable to be 0. You only have x's and y's. So to find the x-intercept, this is what you do. The first thing is you let y equal 0. That's the other variable. Let it be 0. Then you solve for x. Okay? Let y equal 0, solve for x. To find the y-intercept, guess what? You're going to let x equal 0 because that's the other variable, and then you're going to solve for y. All right? So then I want you to recall a couple of things here. I want you to recall that each point is in the form x comma y, right? We saw that with x sub 1, y sub 1 earlier, right? And the origin, just a reminder, the origin is the point 0, 0, right? The origin is the point 0, 0. Every line is in the form x, y.